encourage everyone to check out his Twitter because he has one of the best Twitter accounts for Trump supporters on there.
Shadow ban hard as hell right now, but we're going to try to fight that.
Thanks, Johnny. I agree with you. I think that, I'm anti-vax myself. I know Trump is not pro-mandate. I think Operation Warp Speed was something that, like, when you're the leader of the free world and people tell you that it's going to be like the bubonic plague and we need to get a vaccine out, nobody told him that it was going to be, genetic technology. And he also never said he was just going to do the vaccine. He wanted to move towards therapeutics and hydroxychloroquine and stuff. And they just kept coming after him at every battle. The problem is he doesn't have good communications telling his part of the story, or even to help him know, like, when it's time to, like, say, hey, we were lied to. And now that I know, just like Laura said.
If I can just add one more thing real quick. Donald Trump was probably the most, like, anti-mask person, like, in the public eye. He was, like, berated on a daily basis for not wearing a mask. There's countless pictures you can find online of Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump appearing together, and Ron is, like, double masked up, and Trump is, like, the only one in the photo not wearing a mask. So just kind of a funny point.
Also, I'll say too that for everybody that wants to look, I will say I'm not going to dismiss people's anger, because, we all know people who have died from the vaccine. We all know people who lost their jobs because of mandates. President Trump is not responsible for the mandates. But I don't think that that's, like, an issue to not, vote for him over. Governor Ron DeSantis is on video telling everybody in the state of Florida to get the vaccine. And he lied to every single Floridian and is on video saying that if you are vaccinated with the COVID jab, you have like a 99% chance of being protected from COVID, which is a blatant lie. So I have the videos for anybody who wants to see those, because oddly enough, the media never wants to show those to anybody. And then also, too, I'll say that Donald Trump is an anti-vaxxer. If you look at his history before he was ever involved in politics, and while he was just Donald Trump, the businessman and real estate, tycoon, and, the guy from The Apprentice, he had a lot of tweets. And now that Twitter has, like, reinstated his account, you can go back and you can see these tweets where he's railing against childhood vaccines for giving people autism, and supporting Jenny McCarthy and her anti-vaccine campaigns to stop childhood vaccinations because of childhood vaccine-induced autism. So Donald Trump has a long history of being against big pharma and the vaccine industry prior to being president. And if you were to, like, look into that, you would see for yourself. The media is just trying to throw everything they can at him, and no one's perfect. I'm super anti-mask, super anti-vaccine. We'll never take a jab. We'll never support vaccinations under any circumstance whatsoever. And now, after watching, like, what they did with the COVID jab, it makes me super skeptical of all other vaccines. So not only am I anti-COVID jab, but I'm, like, proud of the anti-vaxxer title. Like, I will gladly be called an anti-vaxxer because I don't trust big pharma at all, right? So nobody's perfect, but we shouldn't just throw the baby with the bathwater out altogether simply because, Donald Trump was president during Operation Warp Speed.
Thank you. Next up, we got Nick, Bob, and then I see Christian. 60 seconds on the clock. Rapid fire. Let's go.
Hey, you guys. Awesome group of people. Thanks for being out here. So, as far as DeSantis goes, I think we need to kind of remember that we need to stop worrying so much about past what they've done, including Trump. And, I love Trump. And be pro winners. And Trump is a winner. So I'm pro Trump. He wins. The 2020 election that's a contentious issue. However that goes moving forward, Trump still has a base that he can take and win a presidency. But then looking for DeSantis, I do think that is more of a future of the Republican Party long term. And so as we're moving forward, and, like, I totally sympathize with some of the things that we've heard today on this call. and it's awful. But as we listen to DeSantis and how he's able to also get that cult of following and get votes to win, it's kind of up to this group of people who, I mean, you guys all support the right things. If we made one of you guys president, Senate, Congress, the country would get a lot better. So it's kind of up to our group to do and mimic a little bit of what the Democrats have done, which is you've seen the left move in, take over some of these non-elected positions in the cabinet and be able to force the people above them into the more conservative, or in their case, the more leftist, but the more conservative position. So I think as we move forward with DeSantis, of course, criticize him, criticize Trump, it's all fine, but past this election, because I mean, if Trump runs and loses to DeSantis in a primary, I don't think it would happen, but if it did, I think it's a serious threat that Trump would run as a third party, and so that would be an absolute disaster. So I'm pro Trump just on that alone.
Thank you,
moving
Nick.
forward, yep, you got it.
Appreciate you. Next up, Bob.
Hey, real quick. Oh, and let me just say something real quick. Kara Castronova from Gateway Pundit is trying to get on the, and I just can't see her. So Kara, I'm looking for you. So just know that I'm looking for you. Derek just gave me the message. And Ryan, if you can help me find her.
I got you. Yep. And next up, Bob.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just want to say a couple things. Some of it I might repeat myself, but one of the things I wanted to comment about just quickly is the compromised positions that a lot of these politicians are in. And this is why Trump is hated so much, because he's an untouchable, like Elliot Ness, the Untouchables. Okay, think about it. They couldn't be coerced in anything, and that's the thing, that they couldn't control Trump. And all these other politicians can be controlled, and that's why he's such a big threat to these Democrats and Republicans. And like a friend of mine said, who's from Russia, he always said to me, he says, some of these people, they don't care if Hillary Clinton wins the election, they'll just go back to their old BS with working with the Republicans and Democrats. That's it. So, because the deep state's so deep. Okay. That's what I wanted to say. And then I wanted to say about the vaccine. I'm an anti-vaxxer too, and I was matter of fact, my friend who's a Russian guy, who's a data scientist, he did a lot of research on this before they start hiding the information on the vaccine and stuff. And he said flat out, he says this is no worse than the flu, as far as that goes. So I just wanted to bring that point up. As a good point. And just to see, I think that he was in a bad position. Trump was when he tried to get rid of McCarthy, or Fauci, because the fact that Fauci is had so much high influence on people and stuff. And just while we're on that subject, being a scientist and engineer like myself, this vaccine, those masks do not help. There's only a few of them that actually do help people. That only help people, and to a certain extent. I mean, the N95, and there's just that other one too. But the part, it's just like they were saying, and these guys got kicked off of Twitter because of the fact that it's just like taking a chain link fence and letting a mosquito go through it. That's what it's like. Okay, I just want to make that comment too. Okay.
Great speech, man. Thank you so much for coming up. We love hearing from everybody. I still have not seen that person that Phenom was asking me for, but when I see it, I'll pull her up. And next up, we have Christian.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for allowing us to chat here with you in this space tonight. We wanted to take a moment to kind of come at this from the case for Trump versus DeSantis from a faith-driven perspective. I think that's unfortunately overlooked quite a bit of times, and I know Brother Bernard earlier spoke a little bit to it. You mentioned King David and some things, and so one of the things that is most important in life that most of us understand when we get to a requisite age is timing. Timing is key in everything. There's a gentleman by the name of Bill Gross from Idea Labs. He was in the early 2000s, was big, internet pioneer, and was very successful. He gave a TED Talk in Whistler in 2015, and he said of all the attributes for a startup to be successful, he said timing is the most important. Now, when we look back at what Jesus said, and this is concerning the voting electorate of today, he said to the people at the time, he said, "You're good at reading the weather signs of the skies, Red sky tonight means fair weather tomorrow. Red sky in the morning means foul weather all day. But you can't read the obvious signs of the times. And I think that's a big problem we have right now. And I think that's a very big problem that DeSantis now finds himself in. Um, in that regard, DeSantis is out of his timing by a country mile. And what I see happening is that if he has is foolish enough to actually try to run for president, I think what's going to happen is he's not only going to, of course, lose to Trump. I have no doubt Trump will be the Republican nominee, but that he'll literally kill his career and he won't ever become president, because what will happen is President Trump, in most regards, he will probably pick someone like Kerry Lake, who I think would be an excellent vice president. And so someone like Kerry Lake will become his vice president. And then when he's done with his one term, of course, he'll endorse his vice president and he won't endorse DeSantis. And Trump has a loyal following of at least 50, 60 million out of the almost 75 million who voted for him last time. So, if DeSantis, when he let out that video of the on the eighth day God created, generally speaking, DeSantis, that was the most disastrous thing. And going back to what a woman here who had spoken earlier, her name was Heather. We saw the red flags when DeSantis never really said much about a stolen election. He didn't say really anything about Mar-a-Lago when it was raided. And you could see that as a young man, and I'm an older gentleman, but as a young man at 44, he had stars in his eyes. In fact, he reminds me of the song from the rock group Rush, Canadian rock group Rush, the song is called A New World Man. And he says that he's wise enough to win the world, but he's fool enough to lose it. And I think that's where DeSantis is right now. He's gotten
Thank
to
you.
a point where he thinks that he's going to just go right in, and he's not going to. And everybody has to respect that. And finally, I want to say on King David, he had a best friend named Jonathan. Jonathan said in the scriptures that he loved him more than his own wife, and by that he meant he recognized that David was going to be the next king. So that's what we have to do as a voting electorate. We have to recognize that President Trump will be the next president. We have to get behind him, and we have to respectfully encourage DeSantis to sit on the sidelines, wait his turn, because if he does it and he gets out of God's timing, he'll probably never be president. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Phenom, did you want to bring up the special guest?
Absolutely. I just, for some reason, can't see her. Oh,
Cara,
there.
would you like
Hey, I'm there.
Cara,
I'm here. How are you?
I see you now.
Could you?
Thank you for coming.
No problem. Hey, everyone. I'm Kara. I write for Gateway Pundit and also on Newsmax. Just came across this chat and it's very interesting. I definitely, I'm still a Trump supporter. I think would still do a better job than DeSantis. I argue with people this all the time. I actually just ran for office here in New York, so it's like kind of split people. Some people are saying DeSantis would be a better choice. For me, and the stuff that I'm covering right now in Gateway Pundit, I'm still covering a lot of this stuff from January 6th, 2 years later, because there are all those political prisoners still in jail that not a lot of people know about. And I think now with the Twitter files, I just get this weird feeling that something's going to come out about like how people from January 6th and people like me that were writing about it, where I got banned from a lot of social media platforms like Facebook for writing about January 6th, is going to come out in maybe like the second quarter of the year. And I think it's going to bring attention to that again. And I really think it's going to vindicate Trump in a lot of ways. There's so much information that I can't even like begin to put together myself. It's just like sometimes me covering this stuff. So if anybody here like would like to volunteer, and I run an organization called Citizens Against Political Persecution, where we try to get the stories from the political prisoners that are out there right now and the real truth about January 6th. I'm about to put out an article actually. And I think the more that we keep putting the truth out about that, the more that's going to help Trump, because it's such a black smear on his record. And I feel like if people really knew what happened, that would help a lot. And also, I really do wish he would speak out a little bit more against the vaccine. I know that the first time he ever got booed was when he was speaking for the vaccine and bragging about it, which I was frustrated with, but I still support him. And I think he understands where the base is at, which is what's so great about him. Like, he really listens to the base, I think, and he understands the base, where I feel like, not that I have anything against DeSantis, but I feel like he really panders more than actually like feels the heartbeat of the base, if that makes any sense. So, I just wanted to put my 2 cents in about that. I really do think getting the truth out about January 6th is something that will help Trump get into office in 2 years and taking off the black smear and also the stigma that still surrounds it. And I think with the new House of Representatives and possibly a real investigation this time into really what happened and exposing that there were actually 4 deaths of protesters, not just one, and that no cops died like America thinks. That will really help his reputation. We really have to repair that in the next 2 years. So if people could still keep talking about that. I know that the news kind of kicked it out of the news cycle. They'll probably trend it back in next week. And it's really frustrating for me as a journalist because I work so hard to get these stories out to the mainstream media. And it only comes around every like once in a while in the news cycle just to keep that out there because there's so much stuff that's yet to be told and untold, and so many more investigations that are coming out now that the January 6th committee on select committee finally is disbanded, and hopefully a real committee will be put together. So anybody wants to follow me, I'm about to put out a pretty good article next week on some of the lies that were told that day. And thank you for letting me speak. And again, Trump 2024, always a Trump supporter.
Cara, I'm so glad
Thank
that
you,
you're
Cara.
here and that Gateway Pundit's back on Twitter. And you probably have noticed this, but a lot of Gateway Pundit articles are like if you try to share them, it'll say like may contain
Right.
suspicious link.
Of course. Yeah, I've
So
shared
there's
them many times with people and they're like, oh my God, you're saying suspicious content. So we know what censorship is, and it's been really difficult to get our message out, even with the Google search. So yes.
Cara, you know about the J6 space that that Phenom's hosting, right? It's going to be one of the biggest spaces. We're trying to get everybody to show up and retweet it. I think we can actually break Twitter that night. We're
If
going to
you
have so
could
many
send
people in
it,
here, and if
if you could
everybody
send
shows
it to
up,
me, the link to it. I'm just learning about Twitter Space. I've actually just have a newfound respect for Twitter since obviously Elon Musk is in. So I'm like paying attention more now. But I really do think that's something. I think that's like Elon Musk is somewhat of someone who loves attention, and once everything else that he's doing, starts to like wear off, he's going to need a new topic. And I do think if we, send him stuff with January 6th and like the suppression of that, I literally got kicked off Facebook for life, a lifetime ban for going to the Justice for January 6th rally last year and speaking. Like my Twitter got suppressed. My website for Citizens Against Political Persecution got taken right off the web. So and I never thought I would ever like have any case against Facebook or anything like that. Now I see everybody getting back on Twitter. I'm like, maybe I'll get my old photos back that I never saved. But I really do feel like there's stuff that's going to come out that he obviously has access to all the FBI meeting with it wasn't just about the election. There's other things that I'm sure had to do with January 6th and the fake insurrection, whatever they call it, that's going to come out and really, really open a lot of doors that, people tweeting about Roseanne Boylan, about Ashley Babbitt, about all the people that died that day, like literally getting suppressed and marked and flagged. I saw it with my own eyes happen. So I'm really looking forward to, I know it. I just know it in my heart that that's going to be one of the topics this year that he puts out there.
Cara, this is Derek. Thank you so much for coming out and speaking, and I'll send you the link to the space that they're talking about. Would love to have you on that night as well.
Thank you so much, everyone.
And thank you for everything that you and Gateway Pundit are doing for all of us. We thank you so much.
Absolutely.
It's an honor. No problem.
Okay, thanks everybody. We'll get to hands. Thanks so much. Just to reset the space, we've got some really fantastic guests. Shu, you've been so patient. Thank you. Shu ran for Congress against Ilhan Omar. I've got Paul's article in the Nest, Paul Ingracia. He is the Claremont Fellow that wrote this fantastic article called Ron DeSanctimonious, or The Real Deal. So it's this case and a really fantastic analysis on his Substack. So please make sure you follow him and you grab that. Of course, Laura Loomer needs no introduction. Thank you for being here, Laura. Derek Evans was in office and he was actually removed from office for his peaceful participation on January 6th. So it's really great for us all to be together. I'm grateful for this time. And let's get back to hands.
next up we have let's see, we got Shu, then Derek, then then Votify Now, then we got Todd, and then we have Taylor. And if you're on the stage, please keep your hand up if you're not one of the main guests, because we're going to be cycling through speakers. So if you're done speaking, I don't see your hand, I'm going to cycle through. We're doing rapid fire. It's going to be 90 seconds per person. If you guys hear the Jeopardy music, please slowly land your plane. You don't have to land it immediately, but when you hear the music playing, that's a polite way to say, wrap it up. Thank you.
I'm sorry, is it my turn?
You got it.
It's okay, sorry. I was just, gonna say that, before Desantis even announced, it's sad to see that the establishment hacks and the big money globalist hedge funds hooligans like Ken Griffin pouring money into his campaign, and that is before he even announced. And you gotta wonder, taking all that money comes with a political price. That price, as small as it is, will be a lost vote, personally for me, and I hope it's for many people. But is it possible that, Trump and DeSantis formed a secret alliance, allowing the Trump-hating rhinos to pour hundreds of millions into DeSantis' potential campaign? The two can feud politically, sucking the air out of the political room for the next year, then join forces. I mean, how awesome would it be to do that and be able to beat, the Never Trumpers and the left? Is it possible that they have joined secretly to figure out a way to beat the, cheating ways of the left?
No, I would say that, so that it was a good question, because there's a lot of people that actually they think that, but it would be unconstitutional for them to run on the same ticket together, because they're both Floridians. And so you can't have a presidential ticket where you have both the president and then the VP from the same state. And so also, like, it's very well known that Donald Trump doesn't like Ron DeSantis, and for good reason too. I mean, he's been back.
Switch to a New York resident. Trump couldn't switch to a New York resident.
Well, but why would he want to switch to New York residents when he's under investigation by Letitia James, and they would further weaponize, the FBI? But like, one of the reasons why I think he was safer, or at least thought he was safer in Florida, is because at his properties in New Jersey and New York, in leftist-controlled states, they weaponize federal law enforcement and abuse their authority to harass him and his family, and spy on them and harass them at their home. And you would think that he would have more protection in the so-called free state of Florida, but Governor DeSantis was oddly very silent when Donald Trump had his home raided at Mar-a-Lago. I personally think it's because he's happy that his home was raided at Mar-a-Lago, and there were several stories that came out of like people in DeSantis's inner circle. There was one report on Business Insider about how DeSantis was actually like really happy that there was the raid at Mar-a-Lago, because he's hoping that Donald Trump gets indicted so it clears him out of the way and makes it easier for the presidential run so that DeSantis can run. And so they're not going to run together. He doesn't like Ron. He thinks he's extremely disloyal, and Ron also doesn't like Trump. And so
I don't know. I'm just being kind of hopeful, because this should not be happening, especially from the center, who Trump has, brought him to the political arena and backed him up and helped him win the governorcy. It should not be happening. And I'm kind of disappointed altogether that Ron has turned out to be this, rhino. Truly.
Yeah, you're right. And that's the thing. But you're actually approaching this from perspective of like a loyal person. Like, you would expect the right thing for Ron to do it to be to show loyalty to the person that he owes his entire political career to, but he's disloyal. And if he's going to be disloyal to his political mentor and the person that allows him to become governor, and if you are thankful for Governor Ron DeSantis, like anyone who's listening to the space or ends up listening to the recording of it, if you are thankful for the policies of Governor Ron DeSantis, you better be thanking Trump, because those are all of Trump's policies. Ron DeSantis took and copied and plagiarized all of Donald Trump's policies. Donald Trump created Ron DeSantis. He had to constantly fly into the state of Florida for the Republican Party of Florida fundraising galas because Ron DeSantis would never actually meet the fundraising goals and always needed Donald Trump in order to save the day. And so he saved him on multiple occasions, came in for rallies on multiple different times. And it's just an incredible act of disloyalty. He thinks he's too good for the president. And if you go back and you watch, I'll just say one last thing before the next question. If you go back and you watch all of Ron DeSantis's TV commercials, right? Casey DeSantis is the one that does all of her husband's talking points for him. Like if you notice with Ron, I'd say I wouldn't be surprised if he's on the spectrum, because he's very awkward when he takes the debate stage. He doesn't actually have the charisma or the charm or the debate skills that President Donald Trump has. You could see this.
No, honestly, Laura, you are absolutely right. Everything's scripted, and all this time, it feels like he has been writing and refining his resume.
Yeah.
Everything was an act,
because
a resume for presidency.
Because his wife is the one that does it. His wife was an award-winning TV reporter here in Florida. And everybody who is close to Ron DeSantis or is in the know in Tallahassee or knows anything about him knows that his wife is the one that wears the pants in the relationship. Casey DeSantis is the one that does all of her husband's talking points for him. And she's the one that's scripting him, right? So that's why when you see the debates, his jokes land flat. Donald Trump is naturally funny. When he is debating Hillary Clinton, he's able to tell her because you'd be in jail. And these are iconic moments because he actually has charisma and suave and character. Whereas Ron DeSantis is very I would say politically autistic, if you'd say, right? A lot of people are not going to say that about the governor, but he's politically autistic in a sense, and he doesn't really have the charm. And so he's not a good communicator, in my opinion. It's very scripted, as you said. And that's the difference between him and Trump. And if he gets on a debate stage with Donald Trump, Trump will destroy him because he actually is real.
Yeah. I mean, he almost lost in 2018. He basically did in the debate against Andrew Gillum. If you go back and rewatch those debates, he got annihilated by his opponent. He does not do well when he's forced to go up against, someone who's disagreeing with him and someone who challenges him. And obviously Andrew Gillum, who, would later be charged with conspiracy, wire fraud, making false statements, and, was at the scene of a meth overdose involving several adult men. I mean, this guy's obviously not Donald Trump. So the fact that people somehow have convinced themselves that Donald Trump would lose in a debate to DeSantis is their heads are obviously non-reality.
Charlie Crist destroyed Ron DeSantis during the debate.
Yeah.
I mean,
you don't even have to go back.
If you're an honest person, and look, I voted for Ron DeSantis as much as I think he's disloyal and I don't like, what he's doing to Donald Trump. I still voted for Ron DeSantis for governor because I'm not going to vote for Charlie Crist. But if you are an honest person and if you're I'm not a political strategist, right? But I was a candidate for Congress. If you're a political strategist or you're a political operative or you're even just a common sense individual, right? You'll see that Charlie Crist did way better in that debate than Ron DeSantis. Sure, his policies sucked, but he was way more seasoned. He was way more capable of handling himself in the moment on the stage. And he completely destroyed Ron DeSantis when he said, can you commit to serving your full 4 years as governor, or are you going to run for president? He asked him 4 times during the debate, and Ron DeSantis refused to answer the question. And he got very, very nervous and clammy on stage and didn't know how to handle it, because he's going to run. And that was a very smart political move on behalf of Charlie Crist, who, in my opinion, won the debate.
Hey, can I jump in? Votify now.
We got a list of everybody that. Oh yeah, Votify. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, no, just to my colleagues, and thanks guys for bringing me up on stage. I appreciate it. I'll be brief and certainly won't take 90 seconds. I mean, there's a whole lot of DeSantis fashion going on here. I'm in Florida. I think both my colleagues, Laura and the woman who spoke before her, could be right. I don't think it's a bad idea for these two people, Trump and DeSantis, to put a little plan together to steal all the oxygen out of the room, throw the bad guys, the left, off their game, keep them guessing. I absolutely don't think their plan is to put Ron in as VP. I absolutely think it's going to be Kerry Lake, or maybe even Tulsi Gabbard. But certainly, I think DeSantis would be maybe number 3 in line. But the other important thing is I think DeSantis is all those things. I'm in Florida and have had the opportunity to speak to DeSantis several times, and I do think that they're clever enough to let to make it appear like DeSantis might make a run, keep the bad guys guessing. I don't know if you guys are anybody's fans of Sun Tzu, Art of War, but it's kind of straight out of one of their playbooks. So that's just my prediction, with respect to everybody speaking. I think these two could be putting a plan together. By the way, it certainly is working. I mean, keep your name in the press. I mean, not that Trump or DeSantis needs that help, but I could easily see these guys keeping the left guessing, and then he brings in Kerry Lake at the last minute. And let's face it, Florida needs DeSantis, whether his wife helps or not. That's not a bad thing. In fact, having a strong partner as it would be a negative one. So just hopefully everybody can keep an open mind and. I'm, I like DeSantis as well. Even both of them have shortcomings. So, anyways, that's it. I'll mute myself here, and I appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to give my 2 cents.
Make sure you follow Votify now. It's an app that really can help people who've experienced like election issues. So please make sure you go follow them.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
Hey, Votify, can you turn on your DMs? People like me would love to reach out and chat with you, but we can't send you a DM.
Yeah, no problem. I have a feeling maybe it's people that I'm not following maybe can't. Because I asked a few people, do they see my DMs? So who just said that, by the way, right away? I need to probably just follow more people. Was that
myself, Ryan? Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
Thank you.
I will. Next, I just followed you now.
Thank you. I'll shoot you a DM. Next up, we have Todd, Kim, and then Taylor.
Yeah, hi everybody. Laura, I just have to say I've listened to you the last 2 nights in Spaces, and to be honest, I didn't know a whole lot about you before last night, and other than when I saw you chain yourself to the Twitter doors. So that's really all I really knew about you until last night, and I've really listened and enjoyed the Spaces very much. You're so impressive and well spoken and bright, and I'm bummed that you didn't do better in the Congress runs, but I hope that trend changes in the future because I think you'd be a great person in Congress. I'm not understanding a lot of the people saying that Kerry Lake should be the VP. I love Kerry Lake. I live in Arizona. I'm still nursing my wounds from her losing, but I just don't think that's a good idea for her to be chosen as VP. I just don't think she has the experience, and the people will say, well, neither did Trump, but Trump had experience running international businesses. Kerry has basically been a TV anchor her whole life. So I don't think she's prepared yet to be the VP. Not that I don't think she'd be great at some point. I just don't think she's ready. I do think if Laura doesn't get the job, that is, that Kerry Lake would be an amazing press secretary for Trump. So that's kind of putting that out there. Also, I wanted to say something that Derek said. Derek, I appreciate your optimism about President Trump, and I love President Trump. I voted for him twice. I'll vote for him again. But I don't think we should be too optimistic for 2024. I think it's going to be brutal. I think it's going to be 2020 on steroids. And the Democrats and many Republicans are going to be willing to take him out by any means. It's going to be really nasty. And he's going to have to be on his game. And I would like to see him, as I know a lot of Trump supporters that I've talked to feel the same way. I'd like to see him become a lot more focused this time around. This is his last hurrah. And I'd like to see him really polish his game. I want to see the rallies be a lot more, not so stale. I think that they got got very stale this last time around, and he needs to step it up and change them around and be really presidential. There's no room for error this time. So that's kind of my feeling. We can't be too optimistic. Love President Trump, and I hope that he is our next president. Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Happy
Thank
New
you.
Year.
Thank you, and Happy New Year.
Next up, we got Kim and then Taylor. And if you guys are on stage, please throw your hands up, guys, and we'll be trying to pull everybody up and do some rapid fire. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. So I just want to say I've been listening for a while, and I've listened to this call lately, and I hear so many people talking about strategy and, you know, the things that the candidates need to do and who we need to have run and everything. And in my opinion, none of it matters unless we fix our elections. That's where I've been working. So I just keep saying this over and over, that we need to fix our elections. And Laura, I hope you attend Phenomenology's call on the 6th, because I'm trying to bring a few people in. I've been working with Audit New York, and they have their deficits report on their website, auditnewyork.com. And I'm working with the main guy that's doing the canvassing and stuff around there. It's hard to get people to go out and canvass, but we have found empty lots with people who voted. The other day, they found a guy who has 22 registrations. And the guy that I'm working with, Randy, he went to the house and there was nobody there by that name, and the people had lived there their entire life. So this was just some random person registered 22 times at that address and had a voting record and everything. And they have 380 some thousand more people that voted than they had voters in the 2022 election. They have over 1 million extra people on their voter rolls. This is one state. It's all over our country. And unless we fix it, it doesn't matter who runs and how well they run. They'll lose.
Thank you, Kim.
True.
Laura, did you want to touch on that?
No, I was just going to say that it's true that it doesn't matter how good of a candidate is or how hard you work if our elections are rigged and we don't address voter fraud. So it's like what Todd said too, that it's not that Donald Trump is a bad candidate. I obviously support Trump for 2024, and many of us do. But the issue is that if the establishment doesn't want you to win, you're not going to win, right? So the only way I see victory for Trump is that, you know, there are solutions to voter fraud. And, you know, I think that mail-in ballots need to be banned. I think they're unconstitutional. I do believe that Election Day should be a national holiday in this country. There should be federal voter ID laws. So we'll see what the Republicans actually do with their majority. I'm not too hopeful, given the fact that, you know, everything's going to be killed in the Senate since the Dems control the Senate. But we'll see, right? Especially since the Republicans are in on the voter fraud as well, and they don't really want Trump in there. It's not like a Democrat versus Republican dichotomy anymore. You know, it's like uniparty, and the Republicans hate Trump just as much as the Democrats do. I'm talking about in DC, that is. And they sabotage Trump just as much as the Democrats do. And if people don't see that, they really need to start like paying attention to, like, you know, what the RNC is doing with their money, and, you know, things that they're intentionally, deliberately not doing. Like I said, as an example earlier in Arizona, by not filing that lawsuit the day after the primary in Kari Lake's primary election to ask Katie Hobbs to recuse herself. Like, you can tell a lot about a person's intentions by the things that they choose to not do, just as much as you can by what they do.
I totally agree with everything you said. And I just want to say one other thing. What we're doing is taking a ground up approach. We are having people, we go door to door, and we, when they find out that they have been a victim of identity theft, they do not, it does not matter whether they're Democrat or Republican. We don't even ask. They are more than willing to sign paperwork saying that that voter record is incorrect for them. On the 5th, next week, Randy has a sheriff's meeting, and he's bringing some of these people who have been victims of identity theft, and he's taken them to the sheriff's meeting. And then he had a meeting set up with legislature there, but they canceled it, of course. But he's going to keep pushing. So we're going from the ground up as opposed to the top down. So I heard you last night speaking, and I told him today, I said, I found your girl. She is a Spitfire, and she has connections with Trump and some other people. And I said, I really want you to be connected with her. So hopefully you'll join the space on the 6th.
Thanks, Kim. Hey guys, people that are in line, I want you to know that we see you. There's a very, very, very long line. So I see you and we'll bring you up. Thank you for being here.
Next up, we have Taylor, and then it's going to go Taylor, Derek, Richard. And if you guys are on stage and you don't have your hand up, I'm going to bring you down as a speaker. And please don't feel bad. I'm just cycling guests, so we can bring you back up.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
So I just I'm a J6er. I didn't go in the building, but I just wanted to. You guys were talking about it earlier. When the FBI came to interrogate me about being there that day, the only reason they could justify interrogating me was because there was a bomb planted there. So I really feel like we got to get to the bottom of the bomb plant. We know it was all bullshit, false flag. So, and then I just want to encourage Laura to not quit fighting. I know you're discouraged, and J6 was just demoralizing for me, and being in these spaces really helps, and like listening to you guys and gives me hope again. So I just was kind of wondering what your thoughts are on maybe like if Pressler could join in. I noticed he was in here. Like, how are we gonna take it back? How are we gonna win? I mean, I know we're up against the voter fraud and all that, but we did it in 2016. I feel like we could do it again. That's all I got.
Thank you. We appreciate you coming to speak. Thank you big time. Next up, we got, who did I say was next? Is that Derek?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Ryan. The first thing I want to say is everybody needs to follow Phenomenology and Ryan. They host amazing spaces. They do a great job of, getting a lot of people involved, getting to speak and everything. So I really encourage that. The first thing I really want to say is, we've talked about Trump and the warp speed, the vaccine, what he said, what he hasn't said. I don't really care what he said and what he hasn't said. I care about what he's done. And when he was president, President Trump did not lock this country down. He did what a president's supposed to do. He left it up to the governors, up to the states' rights, states' issues, and left them make those decisions themselves. And so if you want to be mad that your state got locked down, you need to be mad at your governor, not President Trump, because quite frankly, he didn't do that. He didn't shut it down. And so I think that's really important for people to remember that. And then the other thing I wanted to say, I mentioned it earlier, Laura, you wasn't in here, but when I was actually in prison for January 6th, I was in Michigan, and they've been running ads trying to raise money for Ron DeSantis to run for president since August, and that's I know that for a fact because I watched it on TV in Michigan since August. So this has been going on for a while, a lot of stuff behind closed doors. And as you said, he was asked multiple times during debates. All he had to say was, "Yeah, I'm going to be the governor of Florida for 4 years." He's not done that. He could squash us if he wanted to. He's the one that's causing this infighting, not us. And then one last thing, Todd. I agree with you, man. In terms of the general election, it's going to be a tough battle. I hope Trump doesn't even waste his time debating on the stage with DeSantis and these other people. He doesn't have to. I hope he just goes and continues hosting rallies with 50,000 people and just dominating that way, and just put his name on the ballot and just laugh all the way to the general election, because he's going to win and there's nobody going to touch him in this primary. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Derek. We always love having you up here to speak, man. You're inspirational. Thank you for everything that you've done. You're a true patriot. It's an honor to have you in the space. Everybody in here, thank you all so much. It's really such an honor to get to share this experience with everybody in here. And Phenom, you're the best host, hands down, on Twitter. Thank you all for coming. Next up, we have Infidel, Jonathan, and then Trumpist. Is it, if I'm saying that right, Trumpet?
I love when Infidel speaks because he is another first generation American. And sometimes I think that they are the most patriotic. I'm glad you're here, Infidel.
Thank you, Phenomenon, and thank you, Ryan. Great space as usual. I think you guys been following me on Twitter. I'm a pretty hardcore America First representative. And as you said, for me as a first generation American that came here, really seeking what this country offering and the values of this country and this nation. And I said that before, Trump for me really presented that Americana, and that clicked me right away. And also the winner mentality, which also something I connected with right away. But to get to the current space, I just wanted to say a couple of comments. The first one is about really the case for Trump. I think the case for Trump is really very simple. Right now, we have a government that is completely out of control. We have the entire government is weaponized against the American people at this point of time. So if we need someone in that executive branch to fix it, it needs to be someone that cannot be bought, number one, which means that he has nothing to gain from it, and Trump is this definitely compared to DeSantis that just starting his political career. Two, he doesn't need any more from that political career. This is the last term for Trump. He needs to create a legacy, and that legacy is going down, going in, and cleaning house and leaving. And I remember I was in Trump inauguration in 2016, 2017, and one of his statement is that he mentioned is today I'm giving power back to the American people. And I know that when he went in office, he really thought he didn't realize it's going to be that hard and that everything will be fighting, and that the entire government is want to prevent giving the power back to the American people. Um, so the case, again, the case is really simple. It is we need someone that has nothing to lose, someone with um, that he knows right now what to do. I hope he learned a lot from his first term, and I'm sure he did. And I would like to hear his plan of how he's going to build his cabinet this time. I would like to see much more less uh, Mnuchin in there and bankers, and more really people that will represent us and help carry that America First agenda. Um, and then the last point about just the election. Um, and I know that we want to fix the election, but that's not going to happen until we get back in power. So we have to get back in power. And I think Scott Pressler is one of those people that's been saying this, is we have to really play the democratic game better than what they do. So they learned how to use the system. They start focusing on certain key precincts. They start focusing on certain key areas. And this is what they've been winning through. So we have to beat them in this game. We have to do really a lot of grassroots movements from our sides. And I think everybody in this space, I know that they want him to win in 2024. And I think we should be committing to really take at least some action on our own personal level of talking to neighbors, trying to build some bridges to counteract some of the negative narrative that the mainstream media has been pushing and the polarization that they put around Trump. Because I think he has a chance to win a lot of independents again if we're able to help bridge some of those negative impacts from the media. So that's all what I wanted
Those
to
are
say.
good
Thank you.
points. Paul, what is your response? What are some of your ideas? And then I'd love to hear from Laura too about how to get the independence. I mean, Trump did that so well in 2016. I mean, he had people just that were politically bankrupt with no home. They were so depressed from like the Bush wars, and then what Obama being just a huge disappointment. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on how he can kind of regain that rightful throne of speaking to the independents and the Democrats who feel like they've lost their party.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. And I think the key demographic is obviously those white working class voters kind of in the Northeast, the Rust Belt. These voters that really that Trump appealed to back in 2016, in which maybe he didn't do as well of a job in 2020. And I think, obviously outsourcing jobs, factories, going against globalization in general is a key point that he has to hit on, but also immigration. He was able to churn out these voters because he took the strongest stance on immigration by a major Republican Party candidate in history. So I think, if he could reposition himself on that issue and take another, strong stance on that and position himself as the most conservative candidate on that issue, I think that's really a key issue that drives out these types of voters. It remains perhaps our most important issue beyond the election reform and everything else. That the structural issues, the barriers that we have to overcome, and obviously the lockdowns and vaccines and so forth. But people really resonate with this. It's because it affects all aspects of society. It affects our public schools, housing, medicine, hospitals. There's really, it's an issue that should have universal appeal and would resonate also with legal immigrants who are here as well. So I think appealing to that demographic is absolutely essential for Trump, and is also key for bringing out these sort of independent type voters.
Yeah, I love it. He just definitely does need to get some communications going. I love his. I want to hear from you too, Laura. I love his truths, but I'm wondering if he's going to get back on Twitter. There's some people that are just super mad at him that he's not on Twitter, and I know there's some contractual stuff happening and probably his lawsuit as well. But Laura, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
And Laura, do you think you could get Trump to maybe show up if he can't tweet on Twitter? Would he be legally allowed to show up in one of our Twitter spaces on J6th? How cool would that be if everybody could put out, tag him, do something, maybe
I
get
don't
him on here?
know. I don't have direct contact with him. I mean, I wish it was that easy. So,
I wrote in the article that he should rejoin Twitter, and hopefully he's reading it. I think he might be reading it, so hopefully that resonates with him. And
yeah, I think it's probably like a contractual thing with investors, and I don't know. I'm not going to speak for the president, but I don't know why he's not back on Twitter, given the fact that he's been reinstated. But I can imagine that it probably has something to do with Truth Social and contracts with investors. So, but I definitely think that, and I mentioned this last night during the Twitter space as well. We all know that Elon Musk is supporting Ron DeSantis for 2024. He's already publicly stated that. So it would be a mistake, in my opinion, for Trump to not get on Twitter, knowing that the owner of Twitter would probably be, knowing that we know that Elon hasn't made reservations about being political, and he has a right to be political. I'm not saying that he shouldn't be, but he's already shown that he's willing to make political statements. And so given that Elon is a pretty popular figure with a very large following himself, if he starts making messages, political messages in favor of Ron DeSantis' presidential run, and Donald Trump is not on Twitter to counter or at least put his own pro-Trump messaging out, I think that could be detrimental to Trump. So, I'm certainly glad that I'm back on Twitter. It provides an advantage and reach that I didn't have, that I think significantly damaged me as a candidate while running and being deplatformed. And so I definitely wouldn't recommend campaigning without social media because it's hard, and it makes it very difficult. And given the fact that my last election was decided between it was like 5,800 mail-in ballots, okay, and I had beat Daniel Webster. I had out fundraised him in like every single aspect of fundraising, and beat him in in-person voting at the polls and early voting in person as well. I do believe, had I had access to my Twitter and my Facebook and Instagram accounts, which were all banned several years ago, and I wasn't allowed to have access as a candidate or any campaign social media, that I would be Congresswoman-elect Laura Loomer, and that I would be, set to be sworn into Congress in the next 4 days. So social media definitely plays a huge role in our elections. And I think that Trump, given that he's running in 2024, should definitely get back on Twitter.
If you were his campaign manager, what would your strategy be? What would be the first thing, if you could take over his campaign, where would you be directing him to go?
We had Olivia, do you have the list? We had 5 key points that Trump should be heading on. Obviously, I think the rally circuit, he has to start doing these rallies and start up the rally engine again, and really do these across the country. I think rejoining Twitter is a key thing. He needs to get his voice out there. That runs, that goes along with the rallies. He needs to get his message heard. Also, alternative media. Over the past 2 or 3 years, you now have Rumble. You now have all these new podcasts that have come up and grown in prominence. I think Trump should try to exploit these opportunities, get on as many of these alternative outlets as possible. I mean, our media landscape has shifted tremendously over the past 2 or 3 years. His 2016 campaign was fueled on traditional media outlets. I don't think you could replicate that model anymore. He would have to kind of tap into. I mean, he's just recently did an interview with Darren Beattie of Revolver News that will be coming out shortly, and that should be making a lot of that should be making a lot of influence and making the rounds on social media. But he has to kind of really tap into all those opportunities, and the landscape is there. And I think I would focus on those two things, and also in terms of the issues, get ahead of your candidates, your potential challengers, and DeSantis or whoever else it may be, and make sure you fortify your stances on these key issues that will resonate with the base. Get to the right of the candidates before your fellow challengers might get in and steal your thunder. I think Trump has the potential to do that on some of these key issues. So that would be my advice to him.
I love that. And also some of the policies he's already put forward, they're just not getting spread around enough. But I love what he said about immigration. He put out that 3-point plan for immigration the other day. I love his plan for to end censorship and to help promote the First Amendment. I think that that's been kind of undercovered. Mike Benz from the Foundation for Freedom Online, former State Department, he was on here talking about that and really went deep into how he estimated that would give us solve like 55 to 60% of the problem. And then there's the whole issue with 230, which I think Laura, you were talking with Jason Fick about that. But some of the policy proposals he's put out so far have been fantastic. Again, he just doesn't have the comms really pushing it out there. And then, of course, he's not getting on Fox News anymore. Newsmax is kind of turned dirty. I'd love to hear your take, Laura.
Sorry, it cut out in the last part. My take on, you mentioned Fox News, but it was going in and out.
Oh yeah, well, he had Fox News and Newsmax, and now Newsmax, the guy from Newsmax was being anti-Trump, and so it's time to get creative again. And thank God there's so many independent journalists that that's the one good thing Elon has done, is kind of open the space back up for independent journalists. But I agree with what Laura was saying as well. I mean, Elon's giving the the Starlink to Ukraine, so there's that, and then his whole thing with China. So it's
The
just
playing
very
field is rigged.
convoluted.
The playing field is rigged. And so Elon was fair in that he gave Trump back his account. And so he's shown that he's committed. But at the same time, Elon is also entitled to have his own political viewpoints. And so, even though, like, I'm not opposed to people having political viewpoints. It's naive to think that people are not going to have political opinions and that people are going to be like totally objective, right? That's just not that's just not going to happen. You're not going to have people that are, you know, objective when it comes to you know, politics when we're living in a hyper partisan world. But as long as you're committed to free speech absolutism, I don't care if you have your own political viewpoints. So if Elon is willing to have a leveled playing field and allow for all candidates to have equal access and is not going to censor or amplify or you know, algorithmically boost certain candidates over others, if he wants to support Ron DeSantis, okay, that's his own personal decision. But you know, I support Trump, and the reality is that it's creating an environment that is inherently hostile towards Trump. You have the Murdochs that have come out with the New York Post and Fox News saying that they are anti-Trump now and they are going to be propping up Ron DeSantis. But they had no problem using Donald Trump prior to Ron's primary to boost the Hunter Biden laptop story, right? I mean, they sure had no problem asking Trump to boost Miranda Devine's laptop from Hellbook. And so all I'm trying to say is that, like, all these people that are now throwing Trump under the bus, they all asked him, and I'm not attacking Miranda. I'm just saying that the New York Post, you know, they used even Miranda's reporting, right, to boost themselves, like the Hunter Biden laptop story. And then they sent it over to Trump's comms people and had Trump talk about this a lot and, you know, had his family members talk about the Hunter Biden story. And Trump directed a lot of traffic and support towards the New York Post. And now they're throwing him under the bus, right? So same thing with Fox News. Like, how many people at Fox News did he promote their books? And, you know, he went on and he did so much for Sean Hannity. And we've seen what a turncoat piece of shit Sean Hannity is. Like, oh, well, I for never for one sec, I'm quoting him, never for one second thought that the 2020 election was stolen, right? What do you mean you never thought the election was stolen, right? These people flip. They flip so fast when they think that they can get their bread buttered elsewhere. And they're all just lining up to stab Trump in the back and prepare to support DeSantis ahead of 2024. And Trump's going to need all the help he can get because the allies and the media and places like Fox News and Newsmax and other places that he had before are not going to be there for him. And I wouldn't actually say that Newsmax was ever supportive of Trump. Chris Ruddy is another opportunist. Okay. He was a Clinton donor. He gave over $1 million to the Clinton Foundation. He was anti-Trump. I mean, you can't call yourself a Trump supporter and then give the Clinton Foundation $1 million. That's not how it works. Okay.
Well, let me ask you this, because so that video, it's on I think it's on YouTube. It's really disturbing. It's with Chris Krebs and Stephen Richer. Richer is the Maricopa County recorder here in Arizona. So there is a recorded meeting with them before the election. And some of the topics they brought up were, one, sanctioning anyone who brought up a lawsuit against either COVID or the election. So, and then we've seen all these sanctions where people can't even bring their cases, and lawyers are afraid to represent anyone because they keep getting sanctioned. And number two, they specifically said Dominion needs to bankrupt. This is Chris Krebs, head of CISA. Dominion needs to bankrupt anyone who speaks against the Dominion machines. And then look what happens, these billion-dollar lawsuits. So how much do you think is that? People are just afraid to touch it because the election fraud is real, the machine fraud is real. And then anyone who even dares to report it gets hit with these crazy lawsuits from Dominion.
Well, they have protections. Fox News has enough money to pay for really big lawyers, and Sean Hannity's made a lot of money over the years, and it's about principle. And there comes a point in time where you either care about money or you care about the truth. And some of these people need to put their money where their mouth is, like Mike Lindell has. He's lost a lot of money actually fighting for the truth and going after Dominion and fighting for voter fraud. And he's been canceled and harassed by the FBI. And unfortunately, you know, there's people like Mike Lindell are actually willing to lose everything for the sake of fighting for the truth and our principles. And then there's people who work at Fox News who care more about a paycheck and running cover for people who rig our elections as opposed to fighting for the truth. And that's just those are the facts.
Let's hear from Tara for a second. Tara, you have some great space.
Hey, Tara, thanks for stopping.